Welcome back to the David Pakman Show. I am Farron Cousins from Ring of Fire. I'm sitting in for David today. I'll be here with the next few days with you as well. Something over the weekend definitely bears talking about a little bit more than has already been fleshed out, I believe. And that is the fact that the DNC voted this past Saturday to strip superdelegates of their power. Kind of. I mean, did they really? When you read beyond the headlines that do tell us, oh, Democrats are taking superdelegate power away, they're really not, though. And that's what got me really riled up this past weekend. I saw all these headlines, I saw all the tweets, everybody talking about what a great move this is. And don't get me wrong, it is a phenomenal first step. And I do not at all want to undermine the hard work of the true progressives in the Democratic Party on that Unity Reform Commission who made this happen. They worked their tails off to get this done. Unfortunately, those in power at the DNC did not take it as far as was needed, right? Because here's what happens right now with the superdelegates under the new rules. They are not allowed to vote in a first round ballot. That's it. That's it. That's the power they were stripped of. You just can't vote in a first round ballot. If it goes to a second round, guess what? Superdelegates are right back in there ready to sway an election one way or the other. So nothing changes. And there's actually still another caveat that if one nominee has already secured enough of the vote, they've already won enough delegates that they will win no matter what, then the superdelegates are allowed to go ahead and vote in that first round ballot, just, I guess, so they can feel special and powerful for a few minutes. None of this makes any sense. I mean, there is no way to slice the whole superdelegate thing to where it makes sense. These people who come in as superdelegates, the powerful elite, whoever they may be, they essentially get to vote twice, okay? The other delegates who are there also voted, obviously, most likely, in the primaries, but they only get to cast the other ballot based on what their state voted for. So it's not a second vote, they're just there representing to cast that delegate vote. The superdelegates, on the other hand, they can go to the polls on primary day, cast their ballot, and there goes one vote towards their candidate. Then they get to the convention, and they get to cast an independent vote that is equal to every other delegate in that room. How is that fair? How is that democratic? How is that going with the will of the people? And I know superdelegates most of the time will go with the will of the people, but there is no point to it. Either you want to go with the will of the people or you don't. You either go with whoever wins the popular vote of the primaries and wins the most delegates state by state, or you don't. That's the problem here. Superdelegates should not have a role within the Democratic Party or Republican Party, which they don't, but they shouldn't have a role in politics. They shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be a thing that we have to talk about. It shouldn't be something that the progressives within the Democratic Party are having to fight to have removed. There are so many battles that should be taking place right now, both within the party and outside of it. And yet we are having to have some of our best and brightest people go to the DNC and try to convince them to actually strip superdelegates of their power. We still have a party that refuses to add a ban on fracking to their platform. They voted that down back in 2016. And yet here we are, rather than talking policy, rather than coming up with a party platform that works for the party, that has good, solid messaging that everybody wants to hear, instead of doing that, we're having fights over superdelegates still. That's not productive. And again, I am not in any way trying to undermine the hard work of people who made this happen. It was a fight that needed to happen, and it had to happen. Unfortunately, it's not a fight that if the Democratic Party had done what was right, we would have even had to have had in the first place. We should be talking policy right now. We should be meeting with the party leaders, meeting with the people running for office in this year's midterms, and coming up with a strategy. But instead, we have to go back and rehash these wounds from 2016 because we as a party, the Democrats, just kind of seem incapable of any kind of solid reflection on themselves. And that can hurt them. Now, there's progress being made. Obviously, stripping superdelegates of some of their power, again, great positive step. But it is a baby step, okay? This is not a be-all, end-all for superdelegates. They still have power, and any power that they hold is too much power. But, at least for the time being, they have shown, the party elite, the establishment, the leadership, have shown that they're willing to give some concessions. So, if they're willing to give those concessions, let's keep going. And they are. I mean, the people in the Unity Commission are absolutely pushing forward. They're getting things done. This was just the first battle they had to wage, but they are not done. But there's another flip side of this that I think needs to be talked about. I think right now the Democrats understand that we really are looking at a blue wave this coming November in the midterms. But that blue wave cannot happen if you do not, work on the reunification of the Democratic Party. The establishment, the progressives, the still with her versus the Bernie bros, all of that. And I don't use any of those as derogatory terms. You believe what you believe. You support who you support. But all of those people together have to push the Democrats into office this November. And in order to do that, the DNC has to show that they are making positive steps to be more inclusive, to not let the elite and the establishment have all the power, because you got to get the progressives back in there. Now, that isn't to say that once they do that, okay, every Democrat deserves your vote. The Democrats still have to earn it. And they earn it by coming up with a platform that addresses the real issues that American citizens care about. Student loan debt relief, predatory lenders, the gap between the haves and the have-nots, Medicare for all, 70% support for that across the board here. Those are the things they have to talk about. And when we have to get sidetracked to fight over stupid things like superdelegates who shouldn't have any power to begin with, that is time that is taken away from issues that the American public actually wants to hear about. I am proud of the party and the people who fought diligently to strip superdelegates of some of their powers. That fight's not over, but right now we're going to hold that fight for another day. What's left right now is to fight for a better party platform that is a better reflection of what the American public wants to see from their politicians.